All right, everybody, welcome to episode number 22 with my guest, Ryan Weaver. Ryan, how you doing? And thank you for coming on.
I'm doing great. How you doing today?
Doing pretty good. All right, so before we get too far into this podcast, why don't you give the listeners a little bit to know about yourself?
Well, it depends on what you want me to talk about. I have a military career, almost 21 years that spanned across the globe. Was a military intelligence analyst, joined right out of high school as an intelligence analyst, enlisted, and then transitioned to become a Black Hawk helicopter pilot about halfway through my career. Served in combat, and when I was deployed to Iraq in 2003 and 2004, my brother was also deployed with the 82nd Airborne. He was killed in action while he was over there, and then I came back to his funeral. I was restationed back to Germany, then back to Fort Rucker to finish out my career at Fort Rucker, Alabama, where the home of U.S. Army Flight School is. And I started doing country music around about that time. And I guess for the next few years, I was traveling back and forth between Nashville and doing shows all over the Southeast, and ended up retiring out of the military in 2012, moved to Nashville full time for music, and here I am today.
So, what got you into making music?
I was in flight school. In the middle of flight school, was doing karaoke and singing competitions because I was broke, and it helped me pay my bills because I was winning. I didn't know it was something I was interested in doing, but then I found out that the connection with the crowd was something that I really loved, having a genuine connection with the audience. Was restationed to Germany and was doing some karaoke and stuff for fun while I was over there. And then when I was in Iraq, I started writing songs with a guy, one of my fellow military service members brought his guitar player with him, or excuse me, his guitar with him. And he was playing guitar while we were writing songs together. And when Aaron died, I decided to chase his dream in country music. And it's been a pretty amazing ride since.
All right, so I want to start with something that probably most people are going to know you by, which is you being the patriotic voice of the PBR for a good amount of time. What was that experience like getting to be that patriotic voice of the PBR?
Well, that the Western sports culture, is incredibly patriotic. They're red, white, and blue to the core. Hardworking individuals that love this country, love everything about it, and the freedoms that we enjoy. And as a military service member and a two-time Gold Star family member, my brother Aaron was killed in Iraq. As I mentioned before, my brother-in-law Randy was killed in Afghanistan in 2013 on December 17th. And my job as the patriotic voice of the PBR was to perform. I performed at every major event that they had, or almost every major event, from Madison Square Garden to the World Finals in T-Mobile in Las Vegas. And I got to meet a bunch of incredible people over the 2-year span, and got to travel to Australia in 2019 and do Australian shows with them there as well. Going from Boots in the Sand in Iraq in 2003 to Boots on the center circle of the Grand Ole Opry stage in 2015 to Madison Square Garden and headlining the World Finals for the PBR in 2017 and 18. You just can't describe what it means to go from where I came from, small town USA of Inverness, Florida, to the huge arenas like AT&T Stadium in front of 41,000 PBR fans. It was incredible.
So, what was that first time like for you getting to perform on stage in front of big crowds like that with everybody having their attention on you? Was there any like nerves with that when you first started, or not really?
Well, by the time that I got to the shows with the PBR, I was not a inexperienced performer. I had performed since 2006, and that was, of course, 2017. I had already been at Bridgestone Arena in Nashville with a sold out crowd with a volunteer jam in 2015 and 16. I had performed on the Ryman Auditorium stage, the Mother Church of Country Music, and I had also performed at the Grand Ole Opry. I had opportunities also to perform at West Point before I went out to perform with the PBR. I was announced as the patriotic voice of the professional bull riders before the World Finals in 2017. But I will tell you this, going into shows like that, I had also actually, let me go back, at Fort Rucker in 2003, Fort Rucker, Alabama. I think it was a 45,000 person crowd for their 4th of July celebration. So got a little taste of the big stage there for the first time. But the way that I look at every single performance, it doesn't matter whether there's 2 people in the audience or whether there are 50,000 people in the audience. They're all going to get the same show. They all deserve the same show. They're all there to watch and be entertained. And I love to make a connection with 2 or 50,000. But the World Finals in Las Vegas, replacing Steven Tyler as the headliner. He was the headliner on Saturday night in 2016, and I was the headliner in 2017. Nobody knew who I was. We had an opportunity to be able to make a big splash, and I was able to get the crowd singing my song "That's What America Means to Me" along with me, while lighting up their cell phones for our heroes. And the first time I came out from the stage, I rose up from underneath the stage out into a sold out arena. For that was an incredible experience, and it's everything that I've dreamed about and everything that I've wanted to do. So you asked if there's nerves. There's always this excitability before a show, and I'm actually much more nervous in front of a crowd, like at the Bluebird Cafe in Nashville, where everybody's sitting right in front of you. It's an acoustic show. There's, the production is minimal. It's all about you, your voice, and the guitar and the songs that you're singing. So singing at T-Mobile Arena, I wouldn't say that I was nervous. I will tell you that it was like going in. It would be, if you could imagine your biggest dream, if you could imagine everything that you've wanted and that you've worked for, it was that moment for me, and I was excited to launch after it. And the best thing about that moment, see, a lot of folks get nervous because they're afraid of failing, or they're afraid of something going wrong, or whatever it may be. And I know that the guys that are playing on stage with me are as professional as it gets. They're incredible musicians, and they back me no matter what, if I make a mistake in the show. But it's live, and I've learned over the years of performing that live performances. Heck, Garth Brooks forgot the words to the dance on the CMA Awards. He had sang that song, good God knows how many tens of thousands of times in front of people, and it happens. It's live performances, and if you if anything's going to go wrong, you shake it off, you keep driving on. I mean, I've been in much worse circumstances in combat than any stage is going to present to me. So it was exciting. It was incredible.
Just like you did bring up the one of the nights in T-Mobile Arena, when everybody does get so into it, the flashlights are going. Does that kind of like just create like what feeling does that create for you when everybody's just connected like that?
Oh, it's pumped. I mean, the PBR shows are pure adrenaline. I mean, obviously, I say the shows, their events are pure adrenaline. I mean, you're talking about the best bull riders in the world, the biggest, baddest, best bulls in the world, and that's a moment for all of those bull riders and many of the fans that are out there to see the biggest show that they've got and how they put it on. I do have to say that AT&T Stadium was pretty incredible as far as the show is concerned, because it's just such a massive arena. But T-Mobile Arena being my first show with them, and getting to see how it's all done, because I'd never been to a PBR event even before then. But seeing how they did it at the World Finals was just incredible.
All right, so one of the last questions that I had asked, one of the parts in your answer was that you never could have imagined going from growing up in a small town to being in big cities and being in front of so many people. Is that one of the things that with the PBR, and then also guys like you as a whole, just get so humble because you guys grew up from something not really as big, then just seeing something that big?
I think there's something to be said about working hard for your dreams. There's something to be said about coming from small towns. I had a big family. My circumstance was a little bit unique in that every performance, I tell my band ahead of time that this is the last show you're ever going to do, because it's never a given that you're going to get another one. So if you leave everything that you've got on stage every single time you get up there and perform, you've done the folks that have given us the opportunity, those heroes that have sacrificed their lives, the opportunity to be standing on this stage freely, to be able to do what you love. And every single time my band delivers, my guys are just amazing. And they, for me, I look at every single performance, like I told you before, is the most important performance that I'm going to do, because it may be my last performance. And that was one of the things that actually got me discovered by the PBR, because Sean Gleason, the CEO of the PBR, was at the front row in a hard rock, 80s rock concert. I was opening for Doc and Warrant in Great White at a motorcycle rally, veterans motorcycle rally for the American Soldier Network in Colorado. And I tell that to my guys every single time. We say a prayer before the show. I tell them it's the last show we're going to play, and then we go out there and we give everything that we've got for every single note, every single moment that we've got. And I want the guys to have fun doing it. And a lot of the musicians over the years that have played with me in the past, it's always been my mantra to say that, to do that, because, I've lived a life that's been full of triumphs and tragedies. And choose to take those I choose to take those tragedies and losses and use them to fuel me to be successful. And every single show that I do, I look at it that way.
So with being on the PBR as a Patriotic Voice, when you get to go to so many places, especially like Fairfax, Virginia, when it's outside of DC, with you being former military, what does that feel like getting to go to a place like Washington?
I've traveled all over the world. It was great to go to Washington, D.C. and be able to tour and hang out with the Border Patrol agents and be able to tour the Capitol building. Because I think I went to D.C. when I was in 8th grade. And as a young kid, that young, it was a blur, really, because you're there for a week and it's just a blur and everything's so big. But it's cool to be able to see it as an adult and be able to hang out with the heroes of the Border Patrol that do so many amazing things for this country. And Fairfax was an awesome arena. The crowd there was incredibly patriotic, and it was indicative of what was right next door in the capital of this great country of ours. And each one of these arenas that I went to, it was almost a different culture of people that were outside the arena, because it's completely different in Texas than it is in California, and than it is obviously in DC and Virginia. And getting to meet those people and the folks that accepted the folks from the Western culture. And the crazy thing is this, and I could say this honestly, is that everywhere we went, people were just so kind, and they genuinely loved when we came in with our cowboy hats on and cowboy boots. They love the respect. They loved that we call each other. Yes, we say yes, sir, and yes, ma'am, to folks. And all the negative things that we see in this country and the division that's going on, even being as patriotic as I was in my background and all that, I never saw the negative side of folks out there. It was just an amazing experience.
So is that one thing that's kind of cool about how the PBR has ran things, especially up to this point, where so many different situations, so much negativity is going on in the world, and everybody's just able to congregate in there and just forget about what's going on?
One of the things that I always say is that I love making people forget about their lives 3 minutes at a time, because the song usually lasts about 3 minutes. I love people, I love to get people engaged in the moment, in all the negativity and whatever may be happening in their lives personally or outside, and just the environment, whatever. And the PBR does that, because you think about it, on every single 8 seconds, you're watching and you're not thinking about anything else but that bull rider and that bull. You forget everything else that's going on. It's just an exciting event. And in my performances at the beginning of the night, where I would do 3 songs, and then we would do Never Forgotten, my tribute video in honor of fallen law enforcement, first responder, military, or border patrol, whatever it may be, a hero. The folks are paying attention to that video, and they're paying attention to the family that's being honored, and they forget about the troubles in their own lives when that's all going on. Of course, when the anthem's playing, I'm singing, the anthem, because I did that for every one of the events that I performed at. It's just an opportunity for you to, for you to escape into that incredible, exciting sport.
So, still speaking of the PBR, how great is it to see an organization being able to push through all the stuff going on in the world, especially with COVID, to like last year be one of the first sports to come back, and then
the first sport.
Yeah, the first sport to come back, and providing so many other plans for other sports to come back. What is it like seeing that big cowboy attitude from them?
Well, I think, I got to go to Australia, like I said, in 2019, and we actually had shows scheduled in 2020 in Australia as well, but they closed down the country. It was awesome to be able to see the same thing that really the Western sports are defined by, and it's the hard work, dedication, the make it happenness, I guess is a way of saying it. They're going to make it happen if they want to make it happen. You got some of the roughest, toughest cowboys that have been running that organization or part of that organization for way back when it started, with the top 20 bull, with the 20 bull riders that all put their money together to make it go down. It was cool to know that I was part of that organization, was going to be part of that organization, even still, although in a foreign country, performing for them and being a representative as a former military service member.
All right, so still kind of speaking on the PBR, a couple weeks back, Flint Rasmussen did an Instagram live, and one thing he brought up was you and the way you wore your cowboy hat differently from the riders, and it's for a reason. Can you kind of talk about that reason?
He talked about me.
Like he talked about you always wore your cowboy hat differently than riders when you wore one.
Oh, I actually had Flint Rasmussen talking about me on his live.
Yeah.
Well, there was a reason why I did that, because I didn't want to pretend that I was something I wasn't. And I didn't come from the Western world. I didn't grow up in the Western world. And, Flint Rasmussen, whether he may have been making a dig on me or something, I don't know. But the one thing that I wanted to make sure that I was honest about where I came from and why I was there. And I never claimed to be a cowboy. I mean, they did the be cowboy because of the military, anybody that essentially emulates the the cowboy way. And I will tell you, Larry Mahan, that was a Larry Mahan special edition hat, a custom hat that Larry Mahan sent to me, and he shaped it before he sent it to me, and it was shaped with the flat bill across the front, like the bull riders wear. And I called him up. I tell this story all the time because it's interesting, but I mean, it's funny. But I called him up and I said, Mr. Mahan, I can't thank you enough for sending me this hat. He sent me a 100X of his finest hats that he had. He shaped it for me. He spent all the time on it. I'm talking to a world champion on the phone multiple times, world champion on the phone. And I had the utmost respect for the Western culture, and I had the utmost respect for the bull riders. And I said, Mr. Mahan, I just want to let you know, if you don't mind, I'm going to reshape this because I don't want people to think that I'm trying to be something that I'm not. I love wearing a cowboy hat. I love the style of cowboy hat. I've had a cowboy hat. More of a rockin', edgy cowboy hat. If you watch my music video Burn, it was more of a rolled cowboy hat at the time. But I had always worn a cowboy hat, even when Nashville was switching from everybody not wearing cowboy hats to taking hats off to whatever, and ball caps and all that kind of stuff. I love wearing cowboy hats as a performer. It's just I think it means a lot to the folks out there who wear cowboy hats every single day. But for me, it was a style choice. But when I asked him that, and I said, I didn't want to disrespect the world champion bull rider because he had spent the time on it, and plus his notoriety in the PBR world and bull riding world and in Western sports world. And he said, son, you do you. And so what I did, my cowboy hat, if you look at my pictures, has a rounded front, and it's a bent down in the back. It's just it was my own style of wearing it. There are a lot of folks that wear it like that. And Flint was probably pointing to the fact that I never wore my hat like them because I wasn't part of them. I hadn't been in the Western sports world. But I will tell you that in the time that I did get to spend with the PBR, I tried to learn as much as I could, as quickly as possible, to make sure that I was as respectful to the sport as I could be, that I was respectful to people like Flint and the stock contractors and the cowboys that were running the chutes in the back, that were running all the bulls up to the chutes, and all the drivers and all the hard work and all the folks in the technical side of things that had been with the Western sports world, like Matt West, who was an announcer as well, who's been in the Western sports world for quite some time, and all the announcers that were there. I wanted to make sure that I wasn't disrespecting them and trying to be something that I wasn't. I was there to perform as a country music artist and honor our fallen law enforcement, first responders, and military. And I wasn't there to try and be something that I wasn't. They brought me in to be a former military service member who sings country music, who loves this country, to show that part of the Western sports world through a genuine message in the songs that I wrote.
Yeah, the reason I brought that up is because now actually remembering it, somebody was beefing about, because this Instagram live was shortly after the election, or not the election, but the inauguration, and somebody was beefing about Garth Brooks not wearing his hat normally, and Flint brought up that exact same reason why you don't, is because you don't want to be like those guys, which is really great to me.
Well, I mean, it wasn't that I didn't want to be like them, because they're, the Western sports world and the cowboys and the folks that I got to meet, like Flint, who was always super kind to me. Um, I had an immense amount of respect for all of them. And I didn't want to, like I said, I didn't want to step on the years upon years, decades that many of those cowboys had been in the PBR, or have for their entire lives worked in the Western sports world. Like, I mean, Flint's out of Montana, and I've driven through Montana, and he's a rancher out there, and that is a way of life that you got to have some serious grit to you. And although I grew up in the military pretty much as an 18-year-old, from an 18-year-old on, my the rough circumstances that I went through in combat, and the rough circumstances that I had been through with my family, and the field time and being away from my family during the military, my military service, I have an immense amount of respect for people that do that kind of work, that are hard and but are also kind and genuine, and treat you with the respect by when they shake your hand and look you in the eye. That's one of the best things about the PBR. It's best thing one of the best things. There's so many great things about the Western sports world, and like I said, I just didn't want to disrespect that.
All right. So I want to move to, with you being in the military. So most people that are going to be listening to this are going to be sitting in the comfort of their own home. What was that time like in the military for you, away from the states?
Well, I traveled all over the world. I was stationed in multiple places, from Fort Dix, New Jersey, to Fort Huachuca, Arizona, Fort Leavenworth in Kansas, Schofield Barracks in Hawaii, back to Fort Leavenworth in Kansas, got stuck on recruiting duty in Kansas, went to flight school at Fort Rucker, Alabama, was restationed to Germany, and then was deployed to Iraq. I was only in Iraq for 7 months because when my brother was killed, the Sole Survivor Act was kicked in, and it took me 2 years to even look up in the sky at a Black Hawk when he was shot down in the back of one, even though I flew him. So the last day I actually flew in the military was the day my brother died in Iraq. And the don't get me wrong, I love being comfortable. I'm in my own home doing this podcast with you as well, and I love being comfortable. But there is an appreciation for those, knowing what our military service members go through on a day-to-day basis when they are deployed away from their families. Having experienced that myself, missing the holidays, being gone for Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's, and the holidays that you love to be with your family, and you're away. I got to experience that, which is why every single Friday I wear red to remember everyone deployed. On Fridays, I have my own red T-shirt lines with Lima Charlie Clothing Company, and that's why I always try to make sure everybody, even if I remember everybody deployed every single day, it's a message that I like to do on Fridays to make sure that everybody can wear their message and say, you know what, I'm thinking about them. And if anybody sees their shirt or their hat or whatever it is that they're wearing that's red, that those folks remember too.
So much in this, you brought up both your brother and your stepbrother had passed away in combat. What emotions go through you, even though you know the risk, but what emotions go through you in that moment?
Oh, man. Well, I was already out of the military. I had been retired for a year when Randy was killed. But when Aaron died and I was in combat, like I said, I flew that day. I came back to our company command post, which essentially is an office in the Baghdad International Airport terminal. I know the best way of saying it is where the 747s, the hangar where the 747s that for Iraqi Airways used to get fixed, but that's where our office was. And we had the news on, and Fox News was reporting that a Black Hawk had been shot down west of Baghdad, and my crew chief dropped all his gear and he said, man, my parents think I'm dead right now. Because everybody knows kind of where you're flying from, but they don't know what you're doing, and that kind of, unless you're doing the super special secret special ops stuff in the military. But where we were at Baghdad International Airport, it's everything's going through your mind, but I had no idea that my brother was on that aircraft. I saw it on the news, but I had no idea that he was on that aircraft. And I actually went to sleep that night and was supposed to fly the next night. So I was sleeping in and getting enough rest to be able to sleep or fly the next night. And I got woken up at, I remember it like it was yesterday. It was 8:22 on the clock. And, uh, you know, I was told to go to my company commander's tent and followed by a friend of mine in the unit. And he walked with me over there and to the company commander's tent, which was a couple tents away. And the chaplain was there and he read my brother's Red Cross message, or my company commander read my brother's Red Cross message. And I mean, I'll be honest with you, from that moment, um, I mean, if you could imagine, on January 9th of 2004, how old were you in 2004?
I was only one at that time, actually.
So you were 1 years old, or 1 year old, when my brother died. If you can imagine remembering that day like it happened yesterday, every single day after that. And that's what my life has been like. And that's why I've tried to do the best that I can to honor his sacrifice. And then when it happened to Randy, it was like it happened all over again. It just brought everything back up. And I was I had nothing. I was lost, completely lost. There was no way to describe. There is no way to describe that day other than I was destroyed. I was destroyed as a person. I didn't know. I had to, when I went back to my tent, I had to pick out. I mean, if you could imagine this, I had to. I had to all my clothes were dirty and I was supposed to wash them that day, with exception to the uniform that I was going to wear that day. So, because getting to the washers was kind of a difficult thing, because we had so many soldiers that were using the same washers, and you just kind of wait until you can do it. And so I had to wash all my laundry, and they were going to fly me out so that I could potentially fly back with Aaron. And I didn't know how many socks are. I mean, I kept walking back and forth between my backpack that I had to pack, and because I only was going to bring a couple of days of clothes, but my backpack that I could in my bed, and I was walking back and forth between the two of them, and my company commander was right there, and I'm walking back and forth, and I don't know. He said you need 3 days worth of clothes because it may take 3 days to get back. I didn't know how many pairs of underwear I was going to. I didn't know how many pairs of t-shirts, or how many t-shirts I need, or pairs of socks. Um, I was lost, and I sat down, and I just was. It was horrible. But my company commander said, "Ryan, what can I do? What can I do to help you?" And I said, "Sir, I don't know what I'm supposed to do right now." And anyway, getting past that, for the rest of the trip home, I was just, if you could imagine this, I was flying from New Jersey. I flew into New Jersey, and I flew from New Jersey to Florida on a civilian flight. And I was wearing the same uniform that I'd been wearing for 2 days, and probably smelled to high heavens. I actually got to take a shower, but my uniform probably stunk. But I was sitting in a plane with two folks were next to me on a plane, and I'm up against the window, and the lady sitting between me and her husband, and she says, um, "What?" She said, "Are you coming back from Iraq?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am, I am." And I didn't say anything to her, or have a conversation, because I just didn't feel like talking to anybody. And I said, "Yes, ma'am, I am." And she said, um, "Are you not going to go back to combat anymore?" Or she said, "Are you home? Are you home to see your family?" Or I can't honestly exactly what she said, but essentially she said something to ask me why I was. She asked the question why I was coming home, and I said my brother was just killed in Iraq, and then she lost it on the plane, and I was just like, how do you be in that circumstance? I don't know. I mean, the whole, like I said, that whole time I was home from my brother's funeral, walking behind his horse-drawn caisson for 3 miles into my high school football field, and thousands of people lining the streets, and I'm just looking at my feet the whole time, because I don't. It was just, there's nothing that you can do to describe other than being lost and crushed and just destroyed in that moment. But the cool thing about it is this: is that after when I started doing music, I made a decision, and I first off, I promised myself that no matter what stage I got on, I was going to talk about my brother's sacrifice. And this was before Randy died. And the second thing was I had to get to a point where I made a decision for myself to not let that loss define me and beat me and anchor me down, but to live in my brother's honor. And when I did that, it lifted 1,000,000 pounds of weight off of my shoulders. There was, instead of looking at that day, which I still look at as just the worst day ever, but knowing that I'm never going to be in that bad of a place again. It's never going to get that bad. Every time anybody says, "Oh man, did this suck or did that suck?" I say, "Well, have you ever gone to the bathroom in a 180-degree porta potty when it's 180 degrees inside that sucker? Have you ever walked behind your brother's horse-drawn caisson?" I said, "I'm never going to get it. I'm never going to get in circumstances that are as bad as that." So all I do is, I try to look at every opportunity that I've got every day that I wake up in the morning to try to be as successful as I can and do the best that I can to live in their honor.
So how great is it though now to be a part of a voice like that, to be able to, well, one, be able to live your brother's legacy and keep that going, but also be a big patriotic voice in a world where everybody's kind of forgetting about the police, forgetting about the fire departments, forgetting about the military. When you are able to keep your voice going and supporting all of them, and so many others, like seeing Granger Smith, for example, supporting military and police departments. What does that feel like when you're that light in this whole situation?
Well, it's essential and it's needed. And I didn't sign on the dotted line to defend our Constitution against enemies, foreign and domestic, um, just for the moment, just for the time that I was serving. And volunteering to serve for almost 21 years, it's not something that you can just stop doing. And for me, it was great to be able to, Sean Gleason gave me an opportunity of a lifetime to perform with the PBR. I getting out there to crowds like that, my music getting out there to impacting people's lives was an honor, and it'll always be an honor. But I have a new single we just got recorded. We're getting the music video funded for it right now. It's called "Let's Talk About Heroes." I can't wait until I can get that song out with the music video at the same time. It's going to be a pretty powerful song that I'm extremely proud of, because like you said, law enforcement officers and military and folks are all being vilified, and people, there've been the last 4 years, it's like all of a sudden there was a war on police, and now you're seeing all these headlines in the news or the media about military service members and how bad it is, and now there are all these problems in the military. And I'm talking all my military brothers and sisters in arms that are still active duty, and every single one of them are like, this is just not true. And we're being, I mean, when folks are using our military service members or our heroes as political pawns, it's just not something that I agree with. And honoring them is the best thing that I can do as a prior military service member and a country music artist, and use my voice for that platform. So to answer your question, it's an honor to get to honor them. It's an honor to use my platform to do the right thing, as opposed to disparaging our heroes.
So also being former military, when you see people not stand for the flag during the national anthem, or just put so many bad labels on this country when it's one of the greatest in the world, being former military and standing up for what's right, and you see people not going along with that, what goes through your head?
I have to correct you on one thing. It is the greatest country in the world. And as far as I'm concerned, that knee, when they're taking the knee, everybody's allowed to protest and do what they want to. And that's what we fought for. That's what matters. But when the message is getting lost because of the actions that you're taking and nobody's paying attention to you, and you're angering more people than you're supporting in that. You need to change your method of delivering the message, which means stop kneeling. Because for me, as a double Gold Star family member and former military service member, yes, I absolutely advocate for people to be able to protest peacefully and do and support the causes that they want to. But the thing is, you just have to think about what you're doing and the kind of people that you're affecting that gave you the right to do what you're doing, and the people that you're smacking in the face when you're doing that. And first and foremost, everybody knows why that really happened in the first place. That Colin Kaepernick was sitting on the bench because he lost his job and was upset. And then he was told by a military service member, by Nathan, he was told by that military service member, why don't you take a knee, because that's less disrespectful than sitting on the bench and pouting during the national anthem. Now, we can all say that he was doing it in, in the muse or the eyes or guise, of social justice, but he had lost his job and was pouting. And then he turned it into that and said, oh, it's a social justice thing. And he was mad or whatever it was. And then he was actually, it was recommended that he take a knee during the national anthem. Well, the thing is that NFL started seeing the impact of what that was doing for the fans, because Americans stopped going to games and they stopped watching football. They stopped watching the sport. And the Western culture, the Western sports, the one thing that was amazing about the PBR was that they signed the We Stand United pledge, and where every single bull rider would stand for the national anthem in every single country, regardless of what country they were in, and respect that country and respect what the national anthem meant to that country and what the flag means to that country. And that's why you never see bull riders taking a knee. And that's why you see the best of America, the Western sports athletes and the Western sports folks that are working in the Western sports world. Those folks all are without a doubt some of the most patriotic folks you'll ever meet on the planet.
Is that one of the good things about the PBR, in your opinion, that no matter where they are, they're able to bring everybody from many countries together and get along so quickly, and then also honor what makes each individual country so great?
All you got to do is ask the foreign bull riders that come into the PBR in the U.S. to compete, for world championships. You got so many bull riders out there that are from Brazil and other countries, Canada, Mexico, that all love coming into the United States to compete, because it's giving them an opportunity to make potentially retirement money to take care of their families and compete at the highest levels, and they're afforded the opportunity. And the only thing that separates those bull riders from each other is whether they can stay on that bull for 8 seconds or not. The kind of athlete that they are, the color of their skin, their ethnic background, none of that matters to the PBR. Every single one of them are athletes that have the opportunity to be the best in the world if they can stay on that bull for 8 seconds. And when you can look at an animal like the bulls that they have in the PBR and how incredibly, incredibly fast and just huge and explosive. And you have these bull riders that are unbelievable athletes. Knowing that you can look at those athletes and say, the only thing that we're going to judge about you is whether you can stay on that bull or not. It's an amazing thing. And to know that every single one of those bull riders, regardless of where they come from, the color of their skin, their backgrounds, no matter what, are willing to stand for the American national anthem because they see the dreams that can be made in the professional bull ride with the professional bull riders, is an incredible thing to watch. Every single time I sang the national anthem and I watched how the bull riders would say, they would do a prayer before they would do the national anthem. They would, and then you see the bull riders all standing with their hats over their hearts, and then taking a knee afterwards to say their own prayer. It's an amazing thing to see. That's what America's about. That's what freedom is about. The freedom to be able to chase your dreams in these beautiful United States of ours. And you get to see it from every aspect when it comes to the PBR. That's why I was so honored, and I'll always be honored to say that I was the Patriotic Voice of Professional Bull Riders.
I mean, yeah, that's something that just remind me that's kind of cool. Like you could have a Brazilian come over. It's their first year. I think it was during the finals. J.W. Hart had literally said before, I think it's Claudio Montana Jr.'s battle ride. He said, "Oh, I got so many things that don't match up in this matchup." But he said he heard Claudio being his first year in Brazil, not really knowing the language well of English, and he's able to sing the national anthem fluently. Like that's just so cool to see that those guys care about this country so much, coming from a different place in the world.
Absolutely. I mean, it's as a performer and an artist and a singer, country music artist, if there's anything that connects folks together, it's music. Music is crosses all boundaries of no matter English, Spanish, whatever language you speak. Music crosses those boundaries, and it's a connector for all of us. And that was one of the best things about getting to perform, because every time I got up on that stage, the songs that I was singing were connecting everybody in the audience to the PBR and the way that the PBR feels about America.
All right, so, and one of the last questions, you brought up the PBR. The only thing being judged is your ability on a bull. So many people, especially during the Super Bowl, tried finding so many ways, like in this cancel culture going on, to find ways to bring down Tom Brady because of him playing against Mahomes. Like, how stupid do you think all this is, knowing that that people are trying to find ways to take down somebody who deserves everything that they got just because they can find a way to bring race into it?
Well, I would say this, that the PBR is the perfect example of how that doesn't matter, and that every single athlete that's in the PBR once again is judged by their actions on that bull. I mean, obviously, if they're doing stupid stuff when they're out in the public and that kind of thing, they're going to be face the consequences. But I mean, you talk about two quarterbacks that are, Mahomes is going to be a legendary quarterback, and of course Tom Brady is arguably the GOAT. And why not look at what they're doing on the football field and stop making it about the color of their skin? Because once you start making it about the color of their skin, then that is racism. I mean, that's what I just don't understand, how people can say, hey, we just judge them as the athlete and there's nothing wrong with that. And that's the way it should be. We're just judging them by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. We are judging them by their play on the football field, not the color of their skin. But that's not what's happening right now. And once again, the PBR is a great example of how all ethnic backgrounds can come together, all races can come together, compete and cheer for each other. They're standing next to each other, cheering each other on. You see it at every single event. The bull riders are on each other. They're helping each other get roped up. They're helping each other get set in the chute. They're cheering their teammates. They're cheering their fellow bull riders. I watched Jose Vitor Leme when he was competing against who was it that was down to the finals in 2018?
Kaiki Pacheco. That was 18.
Yes, 18. Yeah. Okay. So they were competing against each other. They were cheering each other on. I mean, it was crazy to watch them cheer each other on when they were competing against each other. I mean, everybody wanted, everybody wanted the best for the best cowboy to win, and they wanted to see the best ride. And you see that across the board, and it's great to see, guys like Cody Nance. He's in there cheering for every single person. And because the other thing that they also know is how dangerous it is, and they could go from being a bull rider on the back of that bull to unconscious, potentially even lose their life at the hands of the bull or their ride. And it's God bless Mason Lowe. Just going to say that I got to do many of an interview with Mason Lowe, and he's just one of the nicest guys on the planet. But those that's one of the best things about the PBR in all of it together. It was just everybody's just doing it together. Everybody's trying to put the best show on that they possibly can, and everybody's trying to ride a bull to make money for their family. It's an amazing experience to watch it. I recommend, if anybody that's listening to this podcast has not been to a PBR event, if you haven't, you need to put that on your bucket list to go.
So speaking of that, you brought up Jose losing to Kaique in 18. Same thing happens in 2019, but it's to Jess Lockwood. What do you think it shows about these guys' characters that Jose was able to climb up to the top of the bucket chutes and shake Lockwood's hand and say that he deserves this? What do you think it shows about his character?
It's oh, absolutely. The Western sports world is all about shaking people's hands, saying yes sir, yeah, yes ma'am, and the sportsmanship in the Western sports world is they know they've earned it if they've earned it. I mean, it's always great to see amazing sportsmanship with every single one of the bull riders. And like I said, just before, they're all standing next to each other because they know that 8 seconds could potentially be the end of it. It's a dangerous sport. Obviously, they've taken safety precautions to make it more safe, but you can't predict when a car, an animal the size of a car, is trying to buck you off, and then when it bucks you off, he's trying to run you over. It's you can't predict what's going to happen with that, but you hope for the best and the best success for each bull rider when they're taking that 8 seconds.
So still staying on this, how great is it also when the PBR is able to return so quickly that there's no arguments because they're not guaranteed to get paid. Like there's no arguments for return. Whereas if you look at like the MLB, they've had so many arguments over who's going to get paid, who's going to get paid as much as they're going to, and to the point that they are more than likely going to go on strike next year. What do you think that shows also about how the PBR manages everything compared to other sports?
Well, the structure of the PBR obviously is significantly different than Major League Baseball, and the athletes. Major League Baseball athletes are paid an enormous amount of money to play on a baseball field, and I would never be talented enough to be able to do that. So I'm not digging Major League Baseball players for making as much as they do. I mean, I think that you and I both could say if we were talented enough to be able to accomplish something and get to that level, which is, you think of the hundreds of thousands of baseball players that want to get to that level and never do. And, I, to each their own when it comes to that, but I know that I'll comment that the PBR, like I said, they have the get it done attitude. They have the work hard attitude, and, they believe in the show's going to go, the show's going to happen. And the hard work attitude is something that I definitely saw when I was touring with them, and was honored to get to know all of them there.
All right, so I want to bring up one of your songs, which is Never Forgotten. Such a great song, first of all. And what's it like to be able to see it after it has been out for like 3 years now, to still have an impact on so many other people and still used in the PBR?
I didn't know they were still using it, but I'm glad that they are, because that was an incredible music video.
They actually used it this past year during 9/11.
Oh, that's great. That's awesome. Well, I mean, I would tell you, Rich Miller, a lot of folks don't know at the beginning of that song, Detective Rich Miller, that's telling the story about when the towers fell and him raising the first flag. Arguably, there was another one that may have been the first one, but when the first flag raised over Ground Zero on Tower 2's antenna, Rich Miller had never told that story before publicly. He had told me the story, but he had never told that story before publicly. And he's a very, very close friend of mine. And you could think when 9/11 happened and then that video came out at the 2017 World Finals, we debuted that song that I co-wrote. And, seeing Rich talk about that, it's incredible, especially on September 11th, knowing somebody that was there. But what was even more incredible, I have to say, is when we were in Madison Square Garden performing in 2018, my first show in Madison Square Garden, my performance happened on the last day that I saw my brother alive in Iraq, and which was just an incredible coincidence. But Rich Miller coming out and posting the flag after they just showed that video of him raising the flag over Ground Zero in Madison Square Garden. If you can imagine trying to sing the national anthem with tears running down your face and snot coming out of your nose because you're crying and all this stuff, that's what happened on that national anthem. Because Rich and I are both bawling when he comes up on there. He's to stand in Madison Square Garden and know where I had come from, and perform in the middle of such a, that's a prestigious place to perform as an artist. But knowing what that video meant and knowing what it meant to Rich and what it meant to New York City, it was just one of those amazing, amazing moments. And I could tell you that Never Forgotten has my entire family pretty much in there. There's a scene where my whole family is together on a dock with Aaron and Randy's pictures, going to my hometown of Inverness in Citrus County in Florida. And to my, to the Purple Heart honor, you see us looking at a memorial of all the Purple Heart folks, my brother's names on it, with my dad and my oldest brother, who also is a retired retired helicopter pilot. He flew Kiowas like Aaron did. That video is one of the proudest things I've ever done in my music career and will always be. And, when I, just to give everybody a little bit of insight, when every event they would play that video and they would honor a local fallen law enforcement, first responder, military, like I said. And I have these earplugs that, they're called in-ear monitors, and essentially they're feeding the music to my ears so that I can sing along, because if they weren't putting it in my ears, I would be catching it coming back off the arena walls, because it's all being sent out to the fans, right? So I would be getting it late, and I would always be singing behind the music. So this actually sends the music to me right on time. And anyway, when they're singing or they're playing this video and they're honoring the family, I have to turn off my little pack to sound isolate my ear, so I'm not hearing the song, because I know what's in that video. And my niece is at the end of it with, when you see the headstone where she's a baby and then she's almost graduating high school in that second picture, and I lose it because it's just a powerful, powerful video, and I can't watch it and I can't listen to the song. So I'm sitting there singing the first four notes of the national anthem to make sure that I don't start in the same pitch of that song, because it's up higher, because then I'll end up being way too high for me to be able to sing the high note on the national anthem. But I'm also singing those four notes so that I don't hear the video and start bawling. Well, in Madison Square Garden, it was a different circumstance, because as soon as they were done honoring that family, Rich comes out with the flag and he comes across, and the crowd's just going crazy. And he gets up there and we look at each other and we both just started crying, because it was so important and it mattered. Those are the kind of moments that I really wish all these people that have forgotten about 9/11, I really wish that they could understand the meaning behind those moments. And I got to live that moment right in my face. And it was one of the best moments of my music career, and will always, it's sitting right up with my September 11th performance on the Grand Ole Opry stage, when Charlie Daniels, God rest his soul, Charlie Daniels introduced me into the Grand Ole, or the circle of the Grand Ole Opry on September 11th in 2015. Both those moments are some of the, I got a top 5 moments, and that was definitely, if not right next to that Grand Ole Opry performance, that one was there. And just incredible.
All right, so speaking of your Grand Ole Opry performance real quick, what does that feel like when you do step onto that circle at the Grand Ole Opry, knowing so many greats in country music have been there?
Humbling, first and foremost. It's humbling. But I was able to tell Aaron and Randy's story to a crowd that had no idea who I was on September 11th, with one of the greatest country music Hall of Famers introducing me coming onto that stage. And to stand in the center of that center circle, knowing who had come before me, I knew that moment was an opportunity of a lifetime to get to do that. And I soaked up every single second of it. And it was so, I honestly, it's crazy to think that I can remember almost every single second of the day that I found out my brother was killed in Iraq, and every single second that Randy was killed in Afghanistan. After Randy was killed in Afghanistan, I can remember those. That Grand Ole Opry performance was a blur. It was so exciting, and just crazy. And and telling Aaron's story, good thing I have video of it, because I can watch myself doing it. And what I would have, you're like, oh man, I would have said something different there. Or, goodness gracious, I would have done that differently or whatever. But having said that, can't change it. And it's, it's incredible to be able to say that I've performed there. And I hope that I get an opportunity to do it again. It's, we have an amazing history of talent that has come on that stage in country music and other genres as well. And to know that I've done that is one of the pinnacles of my career.
All right. So now I kind of want to move to something real quick, just about your opinion about what happened this week with Texas and Mississippi dropping their mask mandates. So many people have found ways just to chew the states out, but they're forgetting that at one point in this country is they have the freedom now to choose to wear it or not. When people like, what can you say about that? Like, you think people are now just becoming comfortable with control from the government instead of choosing their own decisions?
I'm extremely surprised at the number of people that are angry that they actually get to be free again. It's just mind-boggling why anyone would be upset that they get to choose as an adult what they want to do with their own lives again. It just blows my mind. And we've been so programmed over the last, year that was supposed to last 2 weeks to flatten the curve. It blows my mind that people are mad about it. But here's the other thing. On the flip side, I'm going to say this. It also blows my mind that people are applauding the folks that shut their states down. They're applauding. Oh, thank you so much for giving us. No, they shouldn't have done it in the first place. That's just my opinion. You should give adults the choice. I think that DeSantis in Florida, my home state, did it right. He was one of the first ones to say, we're not shutting down anymore. We're going to make our, as adults, you make your own decisions on what you want to do. But we're not shutting down anymore. And am I happy that everyone is free now and they can, in those states and get to do it? I mean, Tennessee's open too. We don't have a mask mandate where we're at as well. Now, there are still businesses that, require you to, and can refuse your service if you don't have a mask on, but, you can choose whether you want to go patronize that service or that restaurant or not. But being free is, that's, you can't place a value on that. And I'm glad that Texas has done what they've done, that Mississippi's done what they've done, and all the other states that are open right now, including Tennessee. But, you can look at the rest of the United States and wonder why they haven't done it yet. When the numbers and the science just don't match up to when you have all these states that are wide open and you have the states that are shut down, and you're still seeing that the numbers just don't match what the reason for shutting down, when teen suicides are up, when the youth are losing their education years, when, this is going to affect this last year is going to affect children that have missed out on a great education, or their education in the classrooms with their teachers. It's going to affect them forever. My hopes are that everybody will be able to rebound back from it, but there are a lot of folks. How old are you?
17.
Okay, so you're 17 years old. You've gotten a taste of it. Did you graduate high school already, or are you still in high school?
Not yet. Next year.
Okay, so your junior and senior year in high school, when I remember my junior and senior year in high school. Those were some of the best times of my life, when I was getting to hang out with my friends and do cool things, for being able to drive, all those kind of things. And but you think about the kids who are in elementary school, where they're developing social skills and they're developing communication skills and they're developing all that. They're losing that. And in a year, when you're 6 and 7 years old, is a long time for learning. So I'm glad that those states are doing what they're doing, but I think that the overt praise from them actually opening up is unnecessary, because they shouldn't have closed down for as long as they closed down anyway. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong, but that's just my opinion.
So something else with this. So many governors or doctors or whatever you want to say, they keep on thinking that we're going to be fine in 1 to 2 years. But when you think about it, they're the ones that have a heck tons of money. They're the ones that are able to provide us the best education for their kids in the middle of this pandemic. When they say stuff like that, does that ever frustrate you when they say that everything will be fine 1 to 2 years when it's already been first off a year?
I just don't think that what they're calling the new normal is normal at all. I think that nothing about this has been normal. Wearing a mask in public when you used to not be able to even wear a mask because you'd be considered, if people would think that you were going to steal something or whatever, having to, I mean, I'll fly and I'll wear a mask and it doesn't bother me. It bothers some other folks and they say that I'm bound down to the man or whatever it is. I don't know. But my career, if it's essential to be able to make a living and put food on the table for my family, then you have to be able to adjust. And that's just my opinion. But having said that, the new normal shouldn't be, it shouldn't be called the new normal. It should be called the abnormal. And then let's get back to normal. And I think that you can only go so far before you destroy so many lives when the science doesn't match what the action. And let's just get back to normal as far as I'm concerned. Hope that's a good enough answer for you.
Yeah. All right, so I just got 3 more questions for you. So, in the midst of a pandemic, in the midst of any challenges that you go through, how much does your faith help you keep strong in the middle of everything going on?
I'd like to say I'm more spiritual than I am religious, although I absolutely believe in God and that Jesus is my savior. He died on the cross to save my soul. But there, one of the things that I get asked a lot is with what's happened to you in your life, have you ever questioned God? Why? Like, I mean, have you ever been mad at God or anything like that? Because those are normal things to go through in the grieving process. And for me, I learned real fast in my career as in the military that everything happens for a reason, good, bad, or indifferent, and God's in control of that. So it's not my choice to. It is a choice, but it's not my place to question why things happen and why God's treating me this way. Woe is me, kind of thing. I just, because even from the worst things that have ever happened to me, like Aaron and Randy, I would have never been able to live the life that I've lived and seen the things that I've seen and done the things that I've done had Aaron not died in Iraq. Would I go back and have him back in a split second so that I did and not live all this? Absolutely, without question. But the reality of it is that you can't. So my motivation and dedication and discipline to this dream has had a lot to do with believing that everything happens good, bad, or indifferent, and God's in control of it. And I guess that's the best way of saying that my faith has got me through the rough times and been when I could be grateful for it in the good times.
All right. So, what would you tell people, either whatever it would be, in order to achieve their dreams?
To achieve their dreams?
Yeah.
Grind. When I say grind, everybody out there, if you don't know what grind is, it means work. It means work. Stay disciplined, stay focused, stay driven, even when try and stay on an even keel. Celebrate the great moments that happen to you. But just know the greatest moments are also going to have the it's like a roller coaster. Greatest moments are going to have the highest highs, but they're also going to have low lows. So if you can celebrate those great moments, but realize that it's time to still work and not forget to work. I know that anybody has an opportunity in these great United States of ours to accomplish whatever they want to if they put their mind to it and they work hard enough and find a way and find the path to be able to make it happen. In failing is not necessarily a bad thing. It can teach you so many things, because I haven't won at everything that I've done. I haven't accomplished everything that I've tried to accomplish, but I know that even if I didn't accomplish something, that I could look at that circumstance and say, okay, I didn't accomplish that, but now I have an opportunity to be able to use what happened where I didn't get where I wanted to be in that circumstance to apply it to future situations if I get into those situations again. And I wish the best for everybody out there.
And then last question I got for you. So either by this podcast
Are you sure? Are you sure? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
So either by this podcast or during your life, what impact do you hope to leave behind on people?
Well, everybody says that, hard work and dedication and all these things are amazing things. But I will say this, there are going to be 2 dates on my headstone. I just hope that the dash in between means more to everyone than the dates that are on there.
All right. Thank you, Ryan, for joining me this afternoon. I appreciate taking time out of your schedule to come on.
I truly appreciate you having me, man.
Yeah, no problem, man. Great to have you on. Hope everything's going to go well for you. Hope whatever songs you release are going to be bangers.
Right. You guys check me out at weavercountry.com. There's an announcement on there about what we're doing to try and raise funds for this music video. There have been no shows, no speaking engagements, no nothing. And I had one speaking engagement in 2020. Most of all my stuff has been canceled. I have one scheduled so far that's locked in for this year because of COVID. I'll appreciate any support that I could get. And you could also win some pretty cool stuff with this raffle that we're doing.
All right. Thank you, Ryan. Have a good day.
You too.